Hi everyone, welcome to Gadgets with Gurman. I'm Mark, I'm your host, and this is our new Bloomberg Gadget Show. We'll be talking about new consumer products on a weekly basis, every week at 12:30 Pacific Time, 3:30 Eastern Time. This is an interactive show, so please send your questions in to our Twitter, Facebook, you can tweet at me, and a lot of people have already sent in questions via email this morning, and we're going to do a great job of really answering your questions throughout the show, so please keep them coming. So let's jump right in. We have today the Samsung Galaxy S8. It's Samsung's new flagship phone going right up against the iPhone. It's a successor to the S7 Edge, and this is Samsung really coming out to show that it can still produce phones coming off of the debacles they've had internally and with the Note 7 battery situation last year. So let's zoom in right here and take a look at this phone. So you can see it has a really cool futuristic design. It comes in a number of cool colors. It's very shiny, the phone, and we'll compare those into some other devices in a minute. But you can see the device actually has really slim bezels around the sides and barely no bezels on the top and bottom. And we'll jump into some of those benefits with our pro tips later on. But let's zoom back out here and take a look comparison-wise. So let's flip it over and we can take a look at the other ones. So this is the S8 Plus. This has a 6.2-inch screen, and it also comes in a black color and a few other colors. And so let's bring in the smaller ones. So you can see here, this is the S8. The regular one has a 5.7-inch screen, and the size is actually pretty comparable between the two, but what you do get is a much larger screen on the Plus. Now, let's actually jump into the screen, right? Because there are some benefits to that. So let's jump right into this silver model, and let's unlock it here. And this is actually our first pro tip. Now, you all know I'm a sports fan, right, if you follow me on Twitter. So let me show you my favorite feature about the S8 Plus. So you can actually go through different apps on the side here. Now, this is a sports column. So you have the Lakers score, the Spurs score, and the Cavs score. Those are my favorite teams. I was really excited to see the Lakers won last night. And you can just jump into Yahoo Sports here, but you can also swipe through different apps on the edge. There's a calendar here with alerts and reminders so you don't miss anything you're doing. You can see the weather, your calendar in another view, and you can customize it to have quick settings, quick apps, suggested apps based on AI intelligence, and it really adds another element to the phone. So you have your basic user interface, the app launcher, going through different apps, and we'll jump into more of those with our other pro tips, but it adds a new overlay where you can do quick actions throughout the system. It actually makes you a bit more productive, and in my usage, I really enjoyed using it. It adds a new element that you don't really see on many other phones. Now, something really important is Bixby. Bixby is Samsung's voice service. This is its competitor to Apple's Siri, Google's Assistant, which by the way is also baked into this phone, and Amazon's Alexa. Samsung announced yesterday that the phone is not going to ship with the US version of the Bixby voice service initially. This means you're not going to be able to pull up commands like asking for sports scores or sending text messages with your voice. But there are other Bixby features that are still available, such as Bixby Vision and Bixby Home, and we'll jump into those. But I want to show you the Bixby Today view first. So if you swipe on this side, you can actually see your recent emails, you can see weather, and even your heart rate. If you flip the phone over, and some older Samsung phones also had this, there's a heart rate sensor combined with the LED flash for the camera. After about 20-30 seconds or so, it could actually tell you your heart rate. I don't know many people who would want that on a phone. Some people prefer it on the watch, but if you want it, you're going on a run, you want to put your hand there, it actually works quite nicely on the older phones. We haven't tested it in the wild on this one yet. But it also uses AI to suggest YouTube videos based on prior videos you watched, frequent web pages, suggested apps, news, and of course sports. And it's pretty much location based as well. It works really well, and it's a little bit more intuitive and feature-packed in comparison to iOS's Today view because it is integrating the AI and more feature-rich applications. And we have a question coming in here. Can you talk about the possible return of old, simple phones? Will we see a return to those retro phones? Yes, Nokia and Gresso are two retro phone makers. They're coming out here, but there is still a pretty big market for these more feature-packed phones for productivity users. And another question coming in here, of course, is the risk of battery life issues that plagued the Note 7. When the Note 7 came out, it was a great phone, very highly reviewed, until the explosion issues started coming up. There were bans by the FAA. You couldn't go onto an airplane without hearing about it. It was pretty embarrassing for the company. But Samsung has made a big point to indicate that they have this new 8-point battery safety check to determine how the battery is in terms of production, if it's working well, really to avoid this. I'd be highly surprised if Samsung had a repeat with these battery issues, given what happened last year and given all the new technology they are putting into improving the battery on the phone. So let's also jump back into Bixby here and take a look at our next pro tip, and that is Bixby Vision. So let's unlock the phone. And at the top of the Bixby menu, there's this eye right here, right? And this eye is actually a camera feature. So I have this Oikos plain Greek yogurt here, which, by the way, I think is great. And it has a barcode, as you can see here on our screen, right? I can take the camera, and I could actually scan the barcode on the yogurt, click the shopping button here. It will search for the product online, and as you can see here, it gave me suggestions to buy more of that yogurt. So this is actually really cool if you're in a store and you want to do a quick price comparison, or you're at someone's house or in an office and you see a product that you really want. It's really cool because you can just basically take a picture with it, and Bixby will use its algorithms and AI in order to pull it up so you can continue to buy it. It's actually a really handy feature. It's been tried before. Amazon, of course, had their flopped Fire phone a few years ago, and the problem with that phone, it was really based around these features. On the Samsung and through Bixby, it's just an addition, so I think it's going to quickly become one of the more popular features of the phone. Given that's not what the phone is focused on, it's just one component of it. Now, of course, we want to answer some more questions here. So another question is the Samsung S8 versus iPhone 8 battle the only relevant contest in the global smartphone wars? It's a great question. So the iPhone and the Samsung phone are not the only phones on the market. They are the two most prominent phones. They get the most market share, and both companies have been very successful over the last decade or so. But there's other phones. There's phones from Huawei, there's some older phones, and you really should take a look at all the phones. But if you want one of the more higher end premium phones, you're going to want to pick between an iPhone, of course, and a Samsung phone. Now, speaking of the iPhone, we do have my iPhone here. And let's compare the size a bit, because I want to show you something really interesting. So this phone, like I said, has a 6.2-inch screen, right? And someone is asking, the screen is longer, right? Yes, so the screen is longer. So the iPhone on the left, this is the jet black model. It has a 5.5-inch screen. This is the 7 Plus. On the right, we have the S8 Plus. It has a 6.2-inch screen. So quite a bit bigger screen, and even though those are small numbers, it really adds up to more content. And yes, this is a taller display. Now, because it's taller, because the bezels are smaller on all sides, they actually can fit that bigger screen, which is almost an inch bigger than the iPhone screen, into a space that's about the same size. Like if I were to stack these on top, you can see it's about the same size. So it's really interesting, and we'll see what Apple has up its sleeve for this fall. I think that these no bezel designs, these OLED screens, is a trend of something new, something that all the phone manufacturers are starting to do this year. You've seen this with Andy Rubin's phone, the co-founder of Android, coming out later this year. You've seen this with the new LG phone, phones from Huawei. So it's a new popular trend. Now, some other cool features here, and this one has to do with the screen as well, is the home button itself. So one thing you may have noticed that there's no physical home button on the bottom, right? And if we compare to the S7 Edge from last year, you can see how they have the home button set up here. You click this, it's your home button. But on the Samsung phone, this S8 phone, the home button is actually integrated into the screen itself. It's pressure sensitive, it gives you a little bit of feedback. Now the cool part about this is it feels right, but another important part is that it actually allows them to use the screen space. So if you're watching a video or something like that, those bottom controls will disappear. Another question coming in here. How is the phone call quality? My S6 has been unreliable with calls. Well, call quality a lot of times comes down to your carrier, and we'll get into the carriers a little bit later in our cost analysis question. So you might want to look at another carrier for having problems, or maybe try speakerphone or certain headphones to see what the problem really is. Now let's jump into our next pro tip, which is something really near and dear to my heart, and that's productivity. I like to use my phone for social media, for personal use, watching video, YouTube, texting, but it's also really important for getting work done on the go. So the first feature I want to show you is this split view. It actually works really well. So let's launch an internet browser, and this is Bloomberg. This is our great mobile homepage. Now, if I want to have a text message conversation with someone about something I'm reading on a website, such as Bloomberg, I can actually open the messages view top right under or right on top of the internet view. So I would click the multitasking button here, right? And I can just hold down on the view right here for the internet, and I could drag it to the top and just drop it on there, and it becomes a split view. And then on the bottom view, I have my multitasking. So if I want to jump into messages, I can jump right into messages. I can text message with someone while reading the article, and it works well. And you have some controls here to flip them. It works in a landscape mode as well. So it's cool. It's very similar in practice to the iPad split view mode that started shipping in iOS 9. So it's a great productivity feature, really taking advantage of the big screen, and it works on the smaller S8 handsets as well. It's really well done. I can't emphasize that enough. I think it's really going to be a boon for productivity users. And speaking of productivity, another cool feature of this S8 phone is the sold separately DeX docking system. So if you have a laptop or a monitor and you want to connect your Ethernet port and your HDMI and your USB, you can actually drop the S8 into this dock and it will show a optimized user interface for bigger screens. And they've been working closely with phone makers and software makers like Microsoft to optimize apps. So the Microsoft Office suite is better optimized on the monitor. So you can basically, get off a train, get to your office, drop this in the dock, and continue your Word document in an interface view that's very similar to Microsoft Office that you would normally see on a Mac or PC. Now, we're going to jump now because people are asking to see the home screen. Now, a lot of these home screens on all these phones looks very similar to the iPhone, but they've changed it up a bit here. It's a circular design. It looks really cool. And it actually kind of looks similar to the old Windows Lumia phone interface, which I really like. And you can just scroll through your apps and go in and out of the main home screen with your weather and such. You can use your edge swipes on this too. It's pretty intuitive, easy to follow. Now, let's jump into our cost analysis. Now, this is a very important point. You might buy a phone, you walk into the store, it costs $700, $800, $900, sometimes $1,000, but you can also buy phones not unlocked. You can buy them with an installment package, right? And it really depends on which carrier and who you buy it from if you want to get the best deal. So there's a few promotions going on now with the S8, given that it's a brand new phone. There's a lot of stuff going on. So I've sort of dug between the different promotions, the different carriers to really determine your best deal to get this phone for the best price if you indeed want it. So let's talk about carriers. So there's 4 main carriers: Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, and AT&T in the United States at least. Now, if you want to buy the phone unlocked, pay for the phone full price, not over time, you're probably going to want to go with a carrier like Verizon. Verizon's offering a deal right now where you can get the S8, the smaller one with the 5.7-inch screen, for $720 upfront, no installments, no interest, none of that. And you can also get the S8 Plus for $840. Now that's a little bit of a discount because if you were to buy the phone unlocked on Sprint, T-Mobile, or AT&T, it would cost you $750 or $850. So $30 savings on the smaller one and a $10 savings on the bigger one. But when you jump into installments, that's when it gets pretty interesting. So over 24 months or over 30 months or over 18 months are the typical installment rates for the big 4 carriers in the United States. For Verizon, it'll cost you, for the smaller one, $720 over 24 months. So you'd basically be paying the same over time, but you'll have 2 years to pay it off with no interest, and that's if you have good credit. But there's some special deals out there if you are on Sprint. So there's some people who want to upgrade their phone on a yearly basis, right? With Sprint, you'd be paying $560 over 18 months, and then when the new phone comes out, you can just switch to that. But Best Buy is offering even better deals where you can get the Verizon models, the AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint ones at an even lower cost over time. So if you're looking to save the most amount of money and pay over installments, you want to take a look at Best Buy's website to see their deals. If you want to buy the phone unlocked at full price, you're going to want to take a look at Verizon. If you are already on your carrier and you don't want to switch to Verizon to save that money, you probably are best to stay on that carrier because with termination fees and all sorts of other fees these days, it really is kind of difficult to switch between carriers. And we have some more questions coming in here. Can you disable Bixby, and do you have security concerns about facial recognition? The facial recognition software on some of these latest phones, it takes some time to get right. But I was playing around with the iris scanner feature earlier. It works really well. It worked on my eyes, and it didn't work on another colleague's eyes. And security concerns about Bixby. Everyone is talking about encryption these days. I don't foresee an issue. So I'm Mark. This was our inaugural episode of Gadgets with Gurman. Please join us next week and send in your questions ahead of time. Thank you so much.